The idea of video game demos is a great concept. The idea of trying games out before you buy them can be both friendly to the consumer and the developer. Putting games in the hands of more people increases its exposure and brings the opportunity for many more sales. After the recent Steam Next Fest, all the playable demos being offered throughout the event saw an increase in wishlist additions by over 400% compared to the general median. GameIndustry.biz argues a similar point, referencing that a solid demo that sells the gameplay experience can greatly increase the long-term sales of a game by bringing visibility to both the gaming press and streamers. Yet despite the obvious benefits of having a demo, there has not yet been a commonly accepted way to access them to a widespread general audience. Most games that offer a demo force the player to download a whole other program separate to the game entirely. A new UK initiative at PlayStation only allows 6 hours of playtime for a select number of games after requiring the user to download and install the whole thing. Worse is that the 6 hours includes whatever time it takes to download and install the game, which can make the system unusable for those without a solid internet connection. Some developers have lent on storefront refund policies to act as a way to deliver a demo. Steam, for example, has a refund policy, which allows for 2 hours of playtime before you can return it for any reason. While this forces a player to only play the beginning of a game, some developers have found this to be a suitable and much less expensive alternative to creating and publishing a demo experience. But this method has drawbacks, especially for developers of smaller indie games, which have found the system to be frustrating and grossly unfair. Some of these games can be completed and returned within the 2 hours, allowing people to essentially play the whole game for free. This has led to some quitting the industry altogether. With the lack of accepted standards and expectations for what a demo is supposed to look like and how they can best be experienced, issues like these will keep happening. While developers could construct an isolated experience of the game to be downloaded, this can be incredibly frustrating, especially if it plans to release well before the finished copy of the game. Ask Game Dev points out that creating a demo usually requires developers to take a snapshot of the current in-build version of the game and sending a team of engineers to specifically work within this environment to get it consumer ready. This demo build happens in a quarantined version of the game, and many of the changes that the developers take for the sake of stability cannot be easily transferred over to the main build. This is also a task explicitly for strong engineers, and the time in which a demo needs to be launched is usually around the later stages of the project. By pulling off the strong engineers off the main build of the game to work on a demo, the actual project can suffer as a result. Additionally, while a good demo can increase a game's exposure and benefit sales, a bad demo can have negative effects. A bad experience can drive potential players away from the game who would have otherwise have bought it. This can result in developers taking more time and effort towards the demo rather than the actual build of the game. There is also the fear that a good demo can cause players to think that they've experienced an appropriate amount of the game and not end up needing to buy the full thing. Therefore, both cases can result in a loss of sales. So demos can present a problem for both consumers and the developers, but I think we can address a lot of these issues by relying on game streaming as a means for delivering and packaging demos. For the consumer, game streaming means that they don't need to install anything on their computer. It makes the experience much more accessible and easy to jump into, rather than organizing a whole afternoon to download and install a game that they may not even end up enjoying. This can work well for single-player and multiplayer games, and it's especially appealing for games like Call of Duty, which can have textures and files that make the initial download package hundreds of gigabytes. And while game streaming may present performance issues for the player, this is largely an acceptable trade-off because it's a demo. The point is to give you an idea on what playing the game is like and help you make an informed decision on whether or not to buy it. Game streaming would also be much easier to develop. The development team can take a virtual snapshot of the finished version of the game and distribute it anywhere around the world. It gives them a large amount of flexibility to craft the demo in a way that makes best sense for the game. Maybe for something like Returnal, a player can have a limited number of runs in an otherwise open version of the game. The game would function otherwise exactly the same. Or something like Red Dead Redemption 2 can show players a specific mission of the game that showcases some of the best parts, while equipping players with some base guns and ammo. For example, the mission where you take Sadie Adler into town to get some supplies before you end up murdering a bunch of people. An isolated experience like this can showcase the high points of Red Dead 2 and easily give players a taste on what the larger experience is like. This is also a much better way to represent the game as opposed to just having them play the first few hours of the game where you just trudge through the snow for hours on end. Game streaming is also fast becoming a practical means for delivering experiences like a demo. The technological capabilities of global hyperscale giants like Microsoft and Amazon have allowed many tech companies to offer high-powered computer processing anywhere in the world, which is a necessity for something like streaming process-intensive video games. Many companies have begun offering their own services for game streaming, including Nvidia, PlayStation, Xbox, and Google. It's become a bit of an arms race, with many companies trying to outdo each other in offering these services cheaper and more accessibly than the other. This free market can allow game developers to use these services to deliver their own demo experiences in a way that's inexpensive and easier than it has ever been before. So using game streaming to deliver demos lowers a lot of the barriers that currently exist in the system now. Game demos can return to being an easy way to help sell and market games while also showing gamers what a taste of the full experience is like. Now, it doesn't solve every problem. People with slow internet speeds are unlikely to have a satisfying experience in streaming a demo. However, I think this will get easier over time as cloud computing scales outward and reaches a more global audience. It also doesn't need to be perfect. All the demo needs to do is show gamers what it's like to play the game and help them make an informed decision on buying it. It's worth exploring as a concept, and I also think it'll be much better than the current clunky methods we have for playing, accessing, and developing demos. Anyway, that's just what I think. Leave a comment below if you think this will be a good idea, and follow this channel for more takes on the game industry every week.